Welcome to the Modern Edge, BetSmart's brand new flagship interview series featuring the bettors, builders, and thinkers shaping the future of sports betting. Each episode delves into how data, discipline, and innovation converge to create an edge in today's game. Our inaugural episode features Trevis Waters, CEO and founder of PlayerProps.ai, an AI-backed player prop research and projection tool which has won multiple awards for responsible gaming and has cultivated a massive community of sports bettors. Without further ado, let's dive into the first episode with CEO and founder of PlayerProps.ai, Trevis Waters. Trevis, how are you?
Hey man, I'm doing pretty good. I believe this is episode 1, right? Is that what you were saying earlier? This is the premiere one, so we gotta kick this new podcast series off on the right foot. But thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you for hopping in. Appreciate all listeners for the first edition of this series that we'll be dropping on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as on our YouTube channel. But Travis, let's dive right into it because there's a lot of things we want to cover, particularly about you as well as about PlayerProps.ai. And the first thing I want to know is about your origins and your mission. So how did you get into sports betting and where did the idea for PlayerProps.ai come from?
So I know originally you kind of wanted these episodes to be 30 minutes. This answer by itself is 30 minutes. So let me just try to squeeze that as short as possible. So my background into how I got here, I guess essentially is, I've always been doing the fantasy football, the fantasy sports stuff, well before sports betting was well before sports betting was legalized in the US, but I'm going to try to make this story as short as possible. I like sharing it. So I was actually a Nickelodeon host for about 7 years, and it got to a point where I was like, I'm making $15 an hour. I have a bachelor's degree. I've been here for 7 years. This is like a horrible decision I've made for my life. And so I was actually sitting next to one of my co-hosts, and she was reading a book that was called How to Write an eBook. And it was literally a book on how to write a digital book. And so I just kept asking her questions. And the number one best-selling ebook is How To. And so I spent a long period of time asking her questions, figuring out, okay, what's something that I have an above average level of skill that I can actually teach to someone else or help them get to my skill level? And I'm like, man, I'm thinking of all these different things. I go, as silly as it sounds, I win an insane amount of fantasy football leagues. Let me see if I can take my skill set and teach someone who maybe just got invited yesterday to their coworker league and they have no idea what anything is or how things are going. Let me get them from a level 1 to a level 2 player. So I actually published, this is back in 2011, I published a few books. I published Fantasy Football for Beginners, Fantasy Baseball for Beginners. Those books, I didn't do any kind of crazy marketing. So, I sold probably 1,000 copies all time to date. So nothing too crazy. But in 2013, when, the FanDuels and the DraftKings started getting a lot larger and more prominent, I published a third book, which was, okay, I taught you how to play fantasy sports. Now this third one is how to monetize it. And that title was Making Money with Fantasy Sports. So that me wanting to figure out how am I going to get myself out of this entertainment, because even though I'm having more fun than I've ever had in my life, performing and hosting these shows, the money's not there. And then publishing books. And that got me a step into the fantasy sports space. And then I became, okay, let me start doing a pay per minute thing. So on NFL Sundays through, I think this platform that was called Live Person, people would pay me, I don't know, 90 cents a minute, which definitely adds up over time if I have 20 windows open up on NFL Sunday. And there's hey, who should I start? This person over this person, or this running back over this running back. And that was the first, those books, monetizing those books, and then monetizing that live Mr. Fantasy Guru stuff. That was the brand, Mr. Fantasy Guru. That was the first foray into fantasy sports / sports betting, if we want to couple them together. That's the quickest gist I could possibly put out.
So after going through this ebook process and seeing success, as well as having success in the fantasy football advice space, and of course there are the correlations with fantasy sports and sports betting, what gap did you see in the market that inspired you to turn this into, like you said, a 90-second interval and a book company into a tool that is now PlayerProps.ai?
So there's one entity that I worked with in this gap time. So for 7 years prior to launching PlayerProps.ai, I co-founded, co-ran, whatever, COO of a daily fantasy sports. And when it started, it was lineup selling, and then it became core plays, and then it had a bunch of different visions. But DFS Karma, Bet Karma ran that. We had that acquired in March of last year, which is the exact same month that I launched PlayerProps.ai. And to answer the question on what were the gaps I was seeing, so there were already a good handful of betting research tools that were existing. The first one to market, Pete with Props.cash. there was, I mean, he not just first to market, but I think he was like the only one on the market for a good chunk of time, soaked up a lot of that market share, or 100% of it rather. Then Evan comes along with Outlier and takes kind of what Pete's vision was and just kind of pumps it on steroids and makes it puts a lot more into the UI aspect of it. I'm saying like, okay, these apps are great. These apps are awesome. However, all of the eyeballs that I've essentially acquired from everything I've done in the past 7 years in this space, running this other company, if you were to rate someone's betting intelligence on a 1 to 10 scale, these are all like 0, 1s, and 2s. And how I'm looking when I first open Props.cash, when I first open Outlier, I'm like, these are like 9 and 10 apps. Like, there's like a lot of onboarding that would need to happen to get someone from, I saw a FanDuel commercial on my TV on Super Bowl Sunday, I'm interested in this, to what the heck's going on with all these things here. And so touching back again on background and education with the ebooks, and I mean, there's a lot of other education things we don't necessarily have to bring up, but then also my background in education, entertainment, and sports, fantasy sports as well. I was like, how do I couple all my strengths of like my entire 20+ year resume and build an app that is for the people who are day oneers, who just saw a commercial? Because if there's nothing that's necessarily doing the hand holding, then the likelihood of somebody developing problem gambling habits, even though I'm not a psychiatrist and I haven't done any like personal studies on this, I feel like the tendency for someone to develop problem gambling from a complete lack of understanding of education of what the heck they're doing and what they're putting their money on, or what they need to happen in the game for their bet to even win. I was like, these people need an insane amount of help. And these apps that were coming out, there was helpful elements to the apps, because that's why the apps are crushing. They're still crushing it. But there wasn't the hand-holding, education tier level, not tier 1, but level 1 better there. So I go, let me do that. I understand why all of these apps aren't necessarily gearing towards the day one, because it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot harder to take somebody who doesn't understand what they're looking at when they see these, green and red bar graphs, how to interpret it. So let me do the hard part that people aren't doing. Let me do the 24/7, 365 educational, like, hey, everybody starts at square one. You're here, start with this, watch this video, look at this channel in Discord, do this, and just kind of do that step. Not necessarily like, we don't say that we're going to get you from a 1 to a 10, but we're going to get you in a comfortable zone, whether that's like a 5 or a 6, where you're no longer lighting your money on fire from making horrendously bad decisions, whether it's the bets that you're putting in, or how many bets you're putting in, or anything that could be grouped into the bad decision category.
Absolutely. PlayerProps.ai celebrates their 2-year anniversary in March, and they've quickly built one of the biggest communities in the entire sports betting industry. Just like it says in their name, PlayerProps.ai uses artificial intelligence to create sports betting projections across various different sports and various different player prop markets. And how has your vision evolved as you've grown the platform and the community aspect of it?
Oh, man, that's a great question. How has it evolved? So going back to the previous entity that I had, the monetization side of that is you were essentially paying for the elite sports data analyst, their plays. I don't know if you would call DFS lineup sellers cappers or what have you, but that stuff. Yeah, it's more or less the same thing. People that crush analyzing data, and you pay for what they analyze because you don't know how to, or you don't want to put in the time to analyze the data. So, I mean, I would say even early on, it's always was a brain baby of mine during this time of these 7 years of running this company, to be like, there's got to be an easier way to fully automate everything. And then that's kind of, I mean, I can't remember when technically OpenAI and ChatGPT became a thing. Like, I don't know when that launched, but the influx of the fascination and the success of AI for all things, not just sports betting, I was like, let me create something that not only is automated, but has a level of the AI on the projection side to where it's no longer you're paying this person for this, which they can go on a cold streak. It's just, hey, here's everything all baked in already. And not only is this person always available for you at any given point, at any given place in the world, no matter what time zone you're in, so you don't have to like wait on a video or wait for their plays, always readily available. Mm-hmm. But here's also, this is how to read what it's telling you. It's not just telling you to, copy and paste. It's, okay, this says this, this says this. How do we interpret that? So when you're looking at it at 3 a.m. when I'm not available to hold your hand and guide you through the promised land that you know because you've learned the pathway to get there. So originally it was I think I can create something where a machine that operates essentially on its own. And then I knew that I wanted to help day oneers, but I think the responsible gambling side grew the most over these 20 months since we launched, where I know that, and then I did like podcast episodes with Jesse, I think even before we launched, and I mentioned the responsible gambling side of it, but I didn't realize how much more passionate that I already was going into that. Like, oh my gosh, I can actually, if I get big enough, I can actually put a significant dent into problem gambling because the small sample size that I have of these, let's just say 100,000 users, and I don't know how many bettors there are in the world, but let's just say 100 million bettors. If I have a small sample size of 100,000 and the people that are following all the guidelines are losing less often and winning more and making better betting decisions from a responsible standpoint, man, if I like pour fuel on this fire, and if I can get big enough, then I can actually put a dent into this more than just me helping a few people.
Absolutely. And I do want to dive into the responsible gambling aspect of PlayerProps.ai as well as the community. But I do want to focus first on the AI aspect of it. You mentioned ChatGPT. You mentioned, obviously, in all industries now, AI is becoming a major force. And I want to know, out of curiosity, in simple terms, without, I guess, giving away the secret sauce, how is PlayerProps.ai using the AI for the projections?
That's the hardest part, is not giving away the secret sauce. It's like, how do you word something? I don't know if it's like, if I can say it like in layman's terms, but it's simply, it's just a plethora of data points. So some of the things that are factored in is like previous matchups with the team when they had this roster versus this roster. What is the weather outside? Is the NFL team playing in a dome? Are they not playing in a dome? So like every possible thing that you would normally consider in your day-to-day research, if you are someone who researches your own bets outside of using AI projections, like all of those factors are kind of baked into it. And so it spits out a number. And something that we did differently that I'm sure people at this point are trying to copy, but we were the first ones to launch a fully transparent AI accuracy. So people, if you don't look at anything PlayerProps.ai and you're used to what all these other apps are doing or what other these cappers or whatever it may be, a first question I get, not a lot, but every once in a while is like, what's the success rate? And I was like, of what? They're like, of your app. I go, but of what? Like, well, of the AI on the app. And I'm like, but of what? So we broke it down to not just the player, but the player and the stat. So here's like a quick example. So LeBron James points. We have an AI accuracy for LeBron James points, which is different than LeBron James points plus assists, which is different than his rebounds. And so what we do is if the projection is, of course, higher or lower the line, that's the direction the AI is leaning. And so we record, did it lean over? Yes. Did he go over? Yes. Boom. That's a check mark. That's a win. And even if he leans under and he goes under, boom, check mark. That's a win. And so we break it down like to the super, super fine detail of player and stat. And this is just for the player prop side of things. But what that does is it paints a great picture, not of like, oh, how accurate is the AI, but how unpredictable is the player that you're looking at. If we're looking at 5 different players, let's just say we're looking at points for NBA, if one of them has regardless of what the AI is saying for the day, if one of them has AI accuracy of like 35% and everyone else is like 60, 65, 70, I'm not even going to care about looking at any more data on that person because that person, it doesn't mean the AI sucks. It means that person is unpredictable. And there's a lot of players and across the sports that are unpredictable. So having that accuracy part of the AI has been huge because it helps, paint the story as opposed to just, how good is your app? How accurate is your app? Which is a silly question that I love getting.
PlayerProps.ai has a thriving Discord community with over 10,000 members. Every single day, Trevis is in the community showing bettors how to make better bets and how to best use the platform to make profit in the long haul. Absolutely a silly question considering all the factors that come in. But this leads me to my next question, which is, how can you see this evolving over the next couple of years as AI improves and, of course, as you continue to build improvements to the app itself?
So there's a lot of things that have not been added to the app that are on the, I guess, the white paper or I'm trying to think of all these cliche things to say. There's a lot of things on the roadmap that have not been built that need to be built. And there's a lot of things that don't exist that I can only hope that nobody else has thought of because they don't exist, that once they add them, and then it just helps us take more and more market share and, just help more people out. But I guess a story that maybe not a lot of people know that haven't watched any of the episodes I've done with Jesse with his podcast is I'm essentially a one-man army. And that's kind of what I originally envisioned of, can I create something that can exist, not necessarily on its own? I mean, we still have developers, working on it 24/7, 365, but I don't need like 10 different cappers writing articles on a daily basis. It exists every minute of every day. And what I do is I do the education side. So Monday through Friday on my YouTube channel, put out a video, do the education side of it. But it's getting to a point, which this is definitely not complaining or a bad problem whatsoever, but we have grown so much, so fast, that it's now gotten to a point where the one-man army thing is needing to expand to, a more than one-man army. So no official date on it, but Q1, we do actually plan on launching a seed round to kind of bring in the extra revenue to build this power team. So we can just focus on building all of these other tools that don't exist in the space that will definitely help people lose less and win more.
Absolutely. And I'm very excited to continue to watch the roadmap come into fruition over the next X amount of time, unlimited timeline there. But Travis, I want to switch the conversation a bit back to responsible gambling and community. And I want to know it could be obvious reasons, but maybe it is more personal for you. Why does responsible gambling and just gambling education mean so much to you?
I think it ties into my background in education, and that's essentially what was missing with responsible gambling. And I don't know if any of the execs at FanDuel or DraftKings are watching this video, but I think responsible gambling, how it is, still is today within the last 2 years, but definitely since sports betting became legalized in 2018, I think it is a joke because I've been an affiliate since 2018 of all these sports books, and they're so strong on, you have to be RG compliant, you have to do this, you have to do this. But when it boils down to it, the have to is putting 1-800-GAMBLER in your footer and calling it a day. And that's the extent of it. And I'm like, no, this responsible gambling, and I've used this metaphor a trillion times, so if you've heard it before, I apologize. But responsible gambling, how it is today, which is the problem, is it's just a bunch of firefighters that are trained to put out fires. We need firefighters because fires exist, but what I am trying to do is teach you how to cook so you don't set your house on fire in the first place. That is what the education side does. That is what the biggest thing that was missing in sports betting is the education side. And again, why are people not doing it? Because it isn't easy. It's not easy to take someone that just saw a Hard Rock commercial in Florida where Post Malone held his phone, and this is actual commercial, and it says he won like a $250,000. But what the people aren't paying attention to is right before they see him win $150,000, they aren't paying attention to the fact that he bet $80,000, which essentially is a double up, which is a smart bet. But what their brain says is, oh, I want to win $150,000, but we don't have $80,000 to gamble. So let me put this $10 and try to make it into $150,000 because I don't want to do the whole, double up over and over again process. So the education spot is the main focus, and that is essentially a lot of my background where, funny enough, while I was working on getting the last entity acquired, this was September 2023 to like 11-week span in fall of 2023 to winter 2023. And this is when I was needing extra income to hire the development team to build version 1.0 of PlayerProps.ai. Going back to my roots of when I hosted shows for Nickelodeon, I got a game show hosting gig that toured the country for 11 weeks. And the concept of that was promoting financial literacy to middle schoolers. So that's like all the stops it made across the country was in middle schools. And we had like a fun game show that you would probably see in 1990s or early 2000s Nickelodeon channel. But the whole purpose is financial literacy. So I thought it was funny that I took a game show hosting gig to promote financial literacy to get money to build an app to promote financial literacy. And so that's kind of, I don't know if it's like a very long-winded answer to like where I'm passionate about, but it's just, it boils down to helping people. That's why teachers are teachers. Teachers aren't teachers to make $35,000 a year. No, they're teachers because they want to help you. They want to educate you. And that's just like, you have to have a passion for that to get those teacher salaries. But yeah, long story short, help people, teach people, help people not lose their houses from betting on sports.
Absolutely, because we know how addictive this is. And like you mentioned there, Trevis, like some of the policies are simply adding things to your footer that just mentions the number and that's not really doing anything. But on the back end of that, I know you have a thriving Discord community. You also have, of course, your YouTube community, Facebook community. But like, and you've alluded to the education that you run through them, having people start, at step one. So what are some of these practices or policies that you're helping people learn through your Discord? Like, where does that actually begin? And like, not necessarily what are you doing, because you've alluded to that and spoken about that, but like, what are like the core components of the education within your communities?
Yeah, so I think my YouTube channel right now has about 900 videos. I would say probably 10% of those are the evergreen. This is how to use this tool. This is how to use this tool, specific to the catering to that tool. And then everything else is my daily show, as I mentioned, where I want to make sure that my education is always relevant, because that's the easiest way to get through to someone. If they see a video, if the first time they discover me on YouTube, and if that's how they discover me in the first place, and they see a video from NHL season last year where I'm talking about a game in December, mid-December, they're not going to pay attention to the educational components of how to use the app and how to be a smarter, better, and more responsible better, because there's no instant reward for them at the end of the show, even though there is, but they want that. Well, if I watch this whole video, am I going to have more money at the end of the day than when I started? And even though if they apply the lessons learned, yes, that's why I'm always doing a show Monday through Friday. So you're always, if you see me for the first time yesterday, for example, Wednesday, we did an NBA show. I pulled up the app. I go, this is how to use the app for NBA, but it's relevant to today because it's got today's games I'm pulling up. Because of XYZ, blah, blah, blah. We're going Julius Randle over 20.5 points, easily hits it in the third quarter. So they get that immediate reward, and that the hope or the game plan of that is that gets them to, oh, maybe there's something to this app, or maybe there's something to what this guy is saying, because this is a very short video and he broke it down very quickly on how easy it is to use the app, how quickly you can use the app, and then boom, I have more money than what I started with because I landed on the same play that he finished in the video. But education-wise, the main component, if you were to ask any of the members that have come through PlayerProps.ai in our first 21 months here, what is the number one thing that you learned that changed your life the most in regards to sports betting? I hope that I changed people's lives outside of sports betting. And I mean, I've had some great stories. Like people have said like, hey, I just bought my engagement ring thanks to PlayerProps.ai. And I'll see things like that. Like, these are parts that like I don't think about when I'm building PlayerProps.ai. It's like, oh, like don't lose your house. But of course, if you're not losing your house, you're either breaking even or winning money. If you're winning money, I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, this is the positive side. Anyway, I'm rambling. I apologize for all my listeners and the viewers out there. To get to the answer of the number one most important thing that is life-changing is the 20-80-20 rule. This rule is the number one thing that I will shove down your throat until you start to practice it. And if you show me a screenshot where you don't practice it, then I'll be like, go back, review the video, look at it again. And so how that breaks down very quickly for everybody tuning in. At any given point, you should never risk more than 20% of your bankroll at any given time. So that means it's impossible, 1000% impossible to lose all your money in a single day. It's impossible. If your screenshot at the end of the day in the bottom right of your FanDuel screenshot shows $0, I know that you ignored the 20-80-20 rule. Of the 20% that you're allowed to risk at any given time, 80% of that is on the safe stuff. And safe stuff, we say 1 to 2 picks. The reason why I don't just say 1 picks is because I know things like price picks exist where you have to have at least 2 plays. So a 2 pick or a 3 pick flex for price picks will be in the safe category. 80% of that 20%, safe stuff. Of the other 20% left over, so if we're using whole numbers here for people that can't do or don't want to do percentages in their head, you have $100, $20 you can risk, 16 of that $20 is on the safe stuff, the rest is $4, that's what's left over. That's on the riskier 3 to 6 pick parlays. 7 or more, not part of the game plan. So when you're dropping 15 pick parlays and complaining that they didn't win, then that's not on us. We have a rule, you have a guideline, you follow it, you have success. And the thing is that at the very beginning, it was a little bit more difficult to get people to catch on. But because we've had so many people have success through the first 20 months, then it's like, I'm not hands off because I'm still educating, but it's awesome to see that like people will see this guy will have a certain role in Discord that shows that he's been a premium member for at least 12 months. And he's like, oh, this guy's winning thousands of dollars. I'm like, well, yeah, because he got to that point. He didn't just come in with a big bankroll. He followed the guidelines, got to that point. And so just having a awesome community that I will put my community up against anyone else's, not size-wise. I mean, PrizePicks has like 600,000 people in Discord. Of course, I can't compete with that. But what I can guarantee is we have the most helpful, welcoming Discord on the planet. I hold my Discord members to a certain standard that if you don't follow the standard, you aren't in our Discord. And so you don't have to like say, hey, welcome, like every time some new person comes in. You don't have to say anything, but you can't be toxic, which nothing against Prize Picks, but there's a lot of 18-year-old toxicity and kids in that one. I've been in that one, and I'm just like, how does this Discord still exist? Like, there's so much negativity here. But yeah, I answer all your questions very long, so I will stop even on that tangent there. I apologize.
No, I love the answers. I appreciate the in-depth there, but I do want to take a look and kind of zoom out a bit and talk about the industry. Obviously, sports betting, like you mentioned, a lot of people are chasing these lottery style parlays, and it's something that, of course, is a zero-sum game, and it's difficult. Sports betting is not something that's easy, but now all this technology exists to kind of help level the playing field. So, of course, AI becoming more pertinent in all industries, including sports betting. What do you think the next big breakthrough in betting technology might be?
The first thing I thought of when you asked that question is a lot of people, no, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but I've had a handful of people come by and they're like, this is silly. AI can't predict how a player's going to feel when they play against their former team or all these different like crazy narratives. And I was like, wait a second, because we have the data to like back that up. At the same time, I go, the way you're thinking, if you remember the Michael Jordan flu game, nobody would have bet his overs because of the narrative that he has a flu, but he crushed it. And you can't just say like, oh, well, like you can't tell how passionate a person's going to be or all these things. There's actually enough data points that you probably could tell that. But your question is, for the future side of things, what's the next biggest technological break? So this is not me tooting my own horn, but there are things that I'm hoping the seed round we're raising in Q1 can help build by the end of 2026. But there's something that doesn't exist in the space that is going to help my mission of curb problem gambling like 1,000 times fold. And it's a feature that I don't even know. I'm not a developer. I don't even know how we're going to bring it to fruition. I just have the concept, and I hope that I can hire the right people that can be like, oh yeah, just boom, it exists. Hopefully it works that way. But in terms of like a public sense, what is the next biggest feature? Everything that I'm thinking of are things that I'm building in the next 12 months. I'm trying to think of like, what's something that I'm not building? Man, I don't want to talk about too much about things for a competitive advantage on those items.
Understandable.
I don't know. I can't think of something. I just hope that more companies take the proactive, responsible gambling approach as opposed to the entire system being 100% reactive. I also, because it's reactive and because it's essentially, it is a bad thing to become addicted to gambling, and it's something that you may shy away from admitting to or seeking help for, which please do not hesitate to do that if you need help. There are plenty of sources out there there's no shame in that. It's a strength to say that you need help. So be strong if you do need help for that. But it's just to get it from whatever technology that can exist. If I don't create it, somebody please create it. Somebody help me create this new niche of the sports betting space, not just for the North American side, but for all of the betting nations and the nations that aren't betting yet. Make it more proactive. Help people before they need help. I don't know why it has to be. It sounds like it's rocket science, but it doesn't sound like it's rocket science. It's not rocket science, so I don't know why the system or the industry treats it like it's rocket science. Doesn't really answer your question, but that's just somebody create some awesome things for responsible gambling, please.
Absolutely. So would you say that is your number one concern for the future, is just the inability to have other companies follow suit and focus on responsible gambling? Because of course we have the sports books, the operators, and like what they do is of course going to be different than someone like a PlayerProps.ai or a tool that is actually trying to empower a bettor to think more sharp. So what really concerns you is, again, that inability to ever have other companies also follow suit, or is there something else that is concerning for the future of the industry?
So I think I have a pretty good answer to this that may help my last begging wish of other people to create more RG-friendly components. But the problem that people think that I'm going to run into is they say, well, of course the sports books aren't going to want to do responsible. Like, why would they want to do education? They make money off people not being educated. And on the surface level, 100% that makes sense. However, I have been an affiliate and I have seen numbers and metrics that my community and how active they are and what they do on their bets, and with all of the partnerships that I've had for the last 10 plus years. And that isn't true. You think that might be the case, but here is an example of why that isn't true and why it actually benefits the books. And hopefully this gets the books more involved if you're listening to this, and gets other companies more involved in creating tools if you're listening to this. But here's an example. Let's say a bettor deposits $500. They have no idea what they're doing. They bet $500. And then they say, you know what? This isn't for me. What is the lifetime value of that bettor? It's $500. What I'm doing is I'm getting someone to deposit $500 if they can afford to. First I help them figure out what their bankroll is in the first place. But let's say it is $500. They deposit that. But through the educational process, they're up 10, down 20, up 30. And it's just this ebb and flow where over the course of, let's say, a 12-month period, they're happy that they may only had to deposit once or twice through 12 months. And they're happy they had action on games they were watching. But let's just say, for example, they're still down over 12 months for even $550. The sports books have made more money off that user, but being more educated than the first example of someone who just bets, deposits, and calls it a day. So it's about the longevity of the user, about would the user be happy losing $500 day one? Or would they be happy about losing $500 over a 12-month period if they're constantly having action in all of these games they're watching? And of course, in hindsight, anybody would say, yes, I would love to have only lost $500 over 12 months as opposed to one day. But on the forefront, which is the issue, they're like, I don't want to lose money, period. But you have to come to the fruition that more likely than not, the house is going to win. So you have to figure out which one of those is a worse scenario for you, losing it in a day or losing it over a 12-month period and having fun action throughout that time.
Absolutely. And that's a really great example. So, Travis, I want to wrap up with the final question, which is our closing segment that we're asked to every guest, and it's the BetSmart question. So what does it mean to you to BetSmart?
The easiest thing to answer to that would be that 20-80-20 rule. It's just the bankroll management. It's figuring out what your bankroll is, managing your bankroll. Your ultimate goal for most bettors, because of this is what the sportsbooks put out in their TV commercials and their social media posts, your goal is not to turn $10 into $50,000. You think that's your goal, but your goal is to not deposit more than once a period, but hopefully not more than once a month. And so if it's just a rethinking of what success looks like to you, because if success only exists from turning 10 to 50,000, you are going to have a very, very bad time betting on sports. You're going to lose a lot of hair. You're going to cause a lot of stress. You're going to blow a lot of blood vessels in your eyeballs. So yeah, just responsible bankroll management is by far and away the biggest thing that I associate to, that's what it means to BetSmart.
Really appreciate that, Trevis, and really appreciate your time. If any viewer or a listener wants to check out PlayerProps.ai, the link is in the description, and always visit
BetSmart.com
for in-depth tool reviews and comparisons. Travis, I really appreciate your time. It was great talking to you and really appreciate your answers. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Modern Edge.
All right, thanks, guys.